So my mom is coming to town in the next few days. My mom's getting older, and I've noticed that her hearing is not as good as it used to be. In fact, my sisters and I encouraged her to get a hearing aid recently. So she spent about $4,000 on a hearing aid, which she wore for about 2 hours, and then she tucked those hearing aids away in a drawer. So I noticed that my mom often answers a question that we didn't ask. Have you ever had that experience where you say something, but then somebody responds in a way that you know they didn't hear what you said? Or maybe you've done it. I know that I've done it. You don't want to ask people to keep repeating themselves, so eventually you just say yes, even though you quite frankly don't know what they said. So there's a lot more to communication than we often think. And there are a lot of times communication goes far beyond the words that we speak. There's tons of research that's been done about communication, and they say that the words that you speak account for only 7% of your communication. 23% of communication is voice tone or body language. You know, when you think about body language, the way you stand and your body gestures make a completely different interpretation for the audience. For example, when you have your hands open, you're received in an honest, open way, and you're often trusted. If you were to simply change your hand position and have your hands down, that tends to disconnect you with the audience, and you're not trusted. And as we know, the flight attendant does not point to the exit sign, they motion toward the exit sign. So our body language has a lot to do with communication. So 7% words and 23% body language and voice tone. So that's 30%. So what's the other 70%? Actually, the other 70% of communication is what we call the energetics of communication. The energetics of communication, what does that mean? Well, there's a great deal more to communication than words and body language. Let me give you a little bit of science. Wherever there's electricity, it actually creates a magnetic field around electricity. And our heart is electric. So our heart creates this electromagnetic field around our body. Science has measured that to be about 3 feet out from your body. Actually, it extends far more than 3 feet out from your body, but that's the limitation of the measuring tools that they have. So we have this electromagnetic field that surrounds our body, and it acts as a carrier wave of information, kind of like a cell phone. And you know, a cell phone, sometimes you have a good signal, and sometimes you have a very garbled signal. Reminds me of the guy, "Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?" So what determines whether you have a good signal or a garbled signal? It is your emotions. Your emotions determine whether that signal toward another person is clear or garbled. Actually, there's been a ton of research about the energetics of communication. Let me tell you about a couple of examples. In a research laboratory in Northern California, a boy and his dog went into the laboratory wearing heart rate monitors. And in the laboratory, the boy was told, don't talk to the dog, don't engage with the dog, don't pet the dog. The only thing he was told to do at a certain cue was to have loving thoughts about the dog. And when he had those loving thoughts about the dog, his heart rhythm and the dog's heart rhythm synced up. So our thoughts about a dog in this case, or about another person, determines whether our heart rhythm actually syncs up with them. So in another experiment with a mother and her baby, they're both wearing heart rate monitors, and the same thing, the mother was told, don't talk to the baby, don't engage with the baby, don't pick the baby up, just at a certain cue to hold loving thoughts about the baby. And when she did this, the mother's brain wave and the baby's heartbeat synced up. We are emotionally connected to other people when we communicate with them, and even when we simply think about them. In fact, we've heard stories about a mother knowing that her child across the country is in danger. That is because of a thing called entanglement. When we really care about another person, we are emotionally entangled with them, and we are in communication with them, even though they may be across the country. Now, another experiment that was done by the same research company involved 40 people. 30 people were taught how to become what they call emotionally coherent or emotionally balanced. And 10 people in the experiment were control subjects. So after they were trained, the 40 people were put in a room in 10 groups of 4 people. So in each group, they had 3 people that were trained to become emotionally coherent, and then the 4th person was a control subject. And at a certain cue, the 3 people became emotionally coherent, which caused them to have an in-sync heart rhythm. And even though the 4th person was a control subject and didn't know what was going on, their heart rhythm went into sync because of the effect of the other 3 people. And of course, when your heart rhythm goes into sync, now you have that clear cell phone signal to communicate with. Can you imagine the implications that the energetics of communication would have on your relationships, on your relationship with your spouse or your teenager, or at work with your boss or your subordinates, or on teams? You see, it does not matter whether you're the boss or the subordinate. The person that knows how to master the energetics of communication is the person that determines how that communication goes. So there's a great deal of science at a much deeper level about communications that you can learn to master. And in fact, when you master that, you will be the most influential person in any situation.